for the last few months on Power Report, here and there, not like as a consistent thing, but just because um, a combination of what's popular on YouTube right now, what is, I think, a negative influence in media that I think we can make an example of, and some of my own personal history. A lot of our criticism has eventually centered around YouTube commentator, so-called comedian Jimmy Dore. And back when I worked at TYT, I was assigned to work on Jimmy Dore's show for a period of time for folks who are kind of new to what I'm doing, what I'm talking about. And back then, internally, I tried to raise the alarm of Jimmy's behavior on air, specifically how I didn't think that he was applying the journalistic rigor that we were trying to display elsewhere on the TYT network on his show, which is a really nice way of saying I don't think he was reading the articles. I didn't think he feel that he was trying to express these opinions, or even really had these opinions very, closely. I wasn't really sure he was really a progressive or whether he was just selling certain talking points and repeating certain talking points that made him sound leftist enough to make sure that people would still, pay money for it. And so eventually, an action around Jimmy Dore at the company at TYT allowed Jimmy to use TYT to grow his audience and legitimize his platform before going independent and grifting to left-wing nihilist and right-wing anti-vaxxers, which brings us to today. And so in a previous episode of Power Report, I pointed out that just as I'm upset with Jimmy Dore, I'm upset with Cenk, the CEO of Young Turks, who I brought this up with him a couple of times. And to an extent, by not acting on mine and other folks' warnings about this, enabling Jimmy to some extent. And that clip made the rounds on social media, and I'll play that clip here now.
But now he's becoming platformed by broader portions of the left, your Glenn Greenwalds of the world, etc., as well as media figures like Tucker Carlson and faux populists on the right. These are stepping stones that Cenk and the Young Turks, and by proxy me, helped lay for him. And I don't feel great about that. And I hope Cenk doesn't feel great about that either.
Now, the remarkable thing about this, I'm aware that, I don't have TYT's audience just on my own. And so I just wanted to get that off of my chest, and for people who were dedicated enough and followed me to, hear my truth. But again, that got clipped and eventually made its rounds on Twitter. And remarkably, Cenk apologized. So here's a clip from a recent bonus episode of TYT that was posted to their YouTube channel. And they were talking about how Jimmy Dore was caught altering the title of a video that he was talking about in an article, like he was referencing, or he altered the title. He displayed a graphic that had an altered quote, essentially, from a different news article that basically changed the meaning of what it was trying to say about the efficacy of COVID vaccines, or like why people were choosing to take the vaccine internationally or not. And Jimmy Dore was trying to make it seem like basically like something that COVID vaccine deniers would enjoy, is going like, see, this is why you shouldn't take the vaccine. That would make so many things in the economy, society easier, as I'll go into it later on the segment. But anyways, Jimmy got caught in 4K. A lot of people were like, hey, you are misrepresenting this quote to your audience. It's bad journalism. It's bad taste. I mean, like, you're caught, buddy. What's happening? And so Jimmy Dore backtracks. He's like, oh, it was a producer. He wasn't supposed to do this thing. I berated him. I fired him, etc. So that kind of mistake shouldn't happen again, won't happen again, etc. But yeah, Jimmy supposedly blamed his producer and fired his producer over it because his producer supposedly did it. Which is funny coming from Jimmy Dore, a guy who used to pride himself over making his own graphics. He would often get upset when we would make graphics for him. And we would make graphics for him more of like a technical, logistical reason. It was just easier for us to play graphics in the control room like we did for every other show than for Jimmy to play graphics out of his computer when, sometimes notifications can go off of your computer. It's just not as good of a production, right? But nevertheless, at least back then, Jimmy loved to produce, uh, he loved to make graphics on his own. I'm not sure if he's doing that right now. I have no idea how the production of a show works right now. I would get tired of making graphics on my own. I'm already editing the show by myself. I get that. But again, that's just what I know with my knowledge of these things. But here is the response from Cenk and Anna, which includes kind of an apology from Cenk.
I mean, clearly that guy made a mistake, which was working for Jimmy in the first place. And by the way, I'll own up to my mistake. I made a mistake by ever hiring Jimmy.
Agreed.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so...
But he was sending steaks and kissing up to you and presenting himself as someone completely different back in the day. Someone who actually was a progressive, someone who actually had morals. I was able to see through it because I had personal interactions that made it abundantly clear what type of person Jimmy Dore really was. I also saw the way he treated producers here. So it would not surprise me in the least bit that he would use a producer as a scapegoat for his own disgusting deceptions and lies.
Look, him sending steaks, I don't care about.
No,
right?
It did have an impact on you in terms of hiring him, but I'm just saying, like, he presented himself as someone completely different.
Right.
Shout out to Anne in this clip because one, the producer she's talking about is definitely me. I definitely remember a moment where Jimmy was particularly having a day, and that resulted in me having a day, and Anna was definitely a person there who was like comforting me and understanding like what was going on because she had been there and dealing with Jimmy, and I didn't know about the story at the time that Anna talked about where apparently I talked about this in the other episode of Power Report as well, where apparently Jimmy had said a really sexually harassing kind of comment to Anna that made her really feel upset, but and to be clear, it wasn't like sexual harassment. That was the reason I was like annoyed with Jimmy. It was more as like he wasn't able to run his show properly. That's not going to go in that rabbit hole there. But yeah, Cenk actually owned up to the apology. So why do I bring this up? Is it vindicating? Sure. Is it because I like gloating? Absolutely. Is it because I learned from Cenk that you have to point out when you're right in independent media because no one else will give you the credit that you deserve or the respect that you should be getting otherwise? Absolutely sure. But no, my decision to leave TYT ultimately didn't come down to Jimmy Dore. My decisions were largely personal. And again, I left on pretty good terms. I still appear on the network fairly often. Even when I was working there, I vocally disagreed with Cenk often on things that were more politically related that had less to do with personnel. Disagreements on the left are allowed and good and important. It's a practice that we should have, and I think it's a practice we do have on the left, but I don't think we have constructive disagreement very often. I don't think the people who are lobbing the criticisms are often doing it to get a positive result. Sometimes they are, and I think oftentimes they are, especially on the left, but oftentimes they're doing it to get call out points and retweets and attention, which is a powerful weapon to use, but like, again, to what result? I really, again, wasn't going for the attention so much as I wanted to clear the air on something that was bothering me, and I also think that a number of people in the TYT audience could kind of notice and realize and start to pick the tea leaves off of. So I just wanted to like share my piece on that. But this is to say that disagreements on the left are allowed and they're good and important. Integrity is ultimately what matters, and being willing to admit and accept fault is also what matters. And here's what I say, and here's where I'll like stick my neck out a little bit. Cenk really listens. Like, I've seen it. I've seen Cenk be really wrong on things, and he'll dig his like feet in being wrong on things. And then once the cameras are off and we can take him aside and like talk to him on stuff, a lot of times he's movable. It'll take some time there, but like, I have experienced a gamut of people in media at TYT and not at TYT, and Cenk, for his age, for his type, is one of the more people you can actually talk to, have a conversation with, and maybe you won't win them totally to your side, but the whole point is we shouldn't, on the left, we should be able to know when there are, marginal differences in the grand scheme of things versus people we need to write off because we know their intentions are not good. We know that they're not willing to listen to criticism or pass on criticism in a respectful way or respond or take accountability in any kind of way. It's equally important on the left. If the left is going to build a coalition, we have to keep our imperfect allies and not faction off into silos within the left so that we can't collaborate together. I'm not sure that totally made sense as a sentence in my notes now that I'm thinking about it, but what I'm trying to say is that the left tends to, find one disagreement or a couple disagreements with a person and then silo them off or silo themselves off away from that person. And then once they find new people to disagree with within their in-group, they just further silo off and further silo off like cell division. And divide and conquer is how the right wing is winning right now. That's how they're destroying Democrats electorally, and that's how they'll continue to do it because they're not playing fair. They're not playing right. They don't all love each other. They have arguments and infighting with themselves. The white nationalists don't love all the moderates. The moderates don't love all the neocons, although it really barely seems like there's a difference, as they all really want to expand the American imperial war machine and the welfare project that is the American military system. The right wing is able to build coalitions even though they disagree with each other. And they can build them strong and they can accomplish the things they want to accomplish. And the left needs to do that as well. The left is actually fighting for righteous things. They're fighting for equality and rights and justice. And there are people broadly in the left who agree with those things. They may need some help on the margins getting the broader, fuller picture on like a Marxist analysis, for example, right? But I'm also on the side of a point that was made rather recently by Kyle Kulinski, another person on the left I don't agree with all the time and haven't agreed with much very often. But he made a great point on this too, that leftists need to not hold on to things. Kyle Kulinski was making the point about labels and labels like Marxist and socialist and Leninist, but I think that can be extrapolated to not holding on to minor grudges of differences within the left. Because the right wing are literally trying to like warmonger and fight. Like they've turned Kyle Rittenhouse into a hero, like a folk hero, for not minding his own business and killing people and getting away free with it in the courts. That's what the left is up against. While we get into petty arguments about this, that, and the other thing. And I'm not saying that like, oh, we need to set aside our differences and give people a pass when they do or say problematic shit. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying figure out the people who can take accountability for their actions in the past and realize that those are more likely allies than enemies. Because we do have enemies in our ranks. They're people who are only feeding people nihilism and sending people in circles in a time when we need a path. We need to get serious strategically and ideologically. There will always be ego in politics, especially in media. Lord knows I would be the last person to change that sitting in front of a camera and talking in front of a microphone. A really fancy, nice sounding microphone, if I do say so myself. Thank you, Peter. But if I can demonstrate anything with this entire, going on, it's that the left can handle disagreements in a mature way, and we can fight together another day. We don't need to yell over each other or call each other's motives into question when we're politically allies anyways. We agree on things 90% of the way. And when we have our disagreements, we can call those out and talk about those and turn those into dialogues. But when it comes down to it, we know who our allies are, and we know who are the people who are more likely to help us. Because our enemies are really good at uniting. And when they unite and we are divided, we can easily be defeated. We have easily been defeated, and we will continue to be. We being the working class, we being the 99%. But united, which hasn't happened yet, but that's why they work so hard, are willing to unite against us. But united, oh, we send them running. We send them running. That's what they don't want. And so that's what we got to give them. Left unity.